You are listening to Scott H. Silverman's Happy Hour, a podcast released on the first 3 Wednesdays of the month. Family crisis, relationship crisis, addiction crisis, no two crisis situations are the same. They vary by family, individual, and relationship. They can encompass complex family dynamics, emotional distress, anger issues, and entitlements, and often involve substance abuse. This podcast addresses these issues and others surrounding the addiction epidemic currently plaguing this country and the world. There is hope and help.
Are you stuck, scared, or unsure of what to do next? If a situation with a loved one, spouse, or even a child has started to spiral, possibly becoming dangerous or threatening, it's time to seek help. My name is Scott H. Silverman. I help families navigate crisis situations. I'm the person you turn to in order to get you and your loved ones unstuck.
Welcome back to the show. This is Scott H. Silverman's Happy Hour, and I'm Michael Glenn Moore, Scott's co-host. Scott, it's another cold Saturday morning for me here, and I'm just loving it, except I've got holes in my roof still, not my roof, but in my ceilings, so I can't use the heater because all my hot air goes up through to the attic. So we're staying kind of nippy around here. So I'm dressed warm with my baseball cap on, and I don't look the way I normally do. But anyway, how are you doing, Scott?
I'm great, Michael. By the way, let everybody know where you live, because when you say it's a little chilly, people should know exactly where you are in the world.
Well, I live in the South. I live in Shreveport, Louisiana, and normally we don't get real cold. We rarely have snow and so forth. So it's like 65, 68 today, and to me that's cold. Like during the night it got down to like 40 something, which is freezing for me. So yeah, being in the South, we don't experience a lot of cold weather. So I really enjoy this. Makes it feel like it's fall finally.
Right, and you certainly had some brutal weather there in the last couple of months, that's for sure.
Yeah, with hurricanes and so forth. I mean, we had just another one a little while ago. I think it was Zeta came through, but didn't come to us. It went across New Orleans and went up Mississippi and up in that area. So we didn't get any fallout from that here. But for Laura, we got hit. That's what I have holes in my ceiling because of Laura. Yeah. So I'll always remember Laura.
Well, I'm glad you're safe now, and the weather's at least not doing anything except making you feel better. Well, everyone, thank you very much for tuning in today. This is Scott H. Silverman's Happy Hour. We call it Happy Hour because it's only 30 minutes, and that'll confuse some of you as you start to figure that all out. Each week, we try to bring in someone special who not only touches others' lives, but who inspires, motivates, and creates some excitement around the path to change, transformation, and hopefully good times and happy and joyous free times as well. So we have a special guest today. But before we go over to her, I want to just remind everyone to please get online. Let us know how you're thinking and feeling. Give us ideas, suggestions, and desires of what you want to hear, see, and have us talk about. And maybe one day you'll be on with us to talk about it. And you can always reach me at 619-993-2738. Call or text me anytime. The holiday season's upon us. We don't always tell people what day it is because this is actually broadcast later, but today is actually Halloween. And what that means is scary times ahead and the big vote's coming up in just a couple of days. So by the time you hear this, we will have either have a lot of lawsuits or a renewed president or a new president. So it'll be interesting to see what the outcome looks like. So for those of you who are out there today and listening to what we have to say, please let us know how we can be of service and how we can help. So today we have Kirstin Leigh. I'm going to read a little bit about her, and then I'm going to turn it over to her. She is somebody who wants to empower change in their story by equipping them with the tools that they need to let go of life-controlling issues, dream big, believe in themselves, and never give up. Having secretly struggled with addictions for over a decade, her sole purpose is to share how purpose is the key to your breakthrough. I see you're shaking your head. Well, I'm reading your stuff, so it's your stuff, Kirstin. So hopefully I'm getting it right. You don't have to let, where you are become who you are. You don't have to live with whatever life throws you or whatever you get yourself into. You can change your story. We all have a purpose and a plan for our life, but we have to believe in it and we have to fight for it. Changing your story takes work, but it's work you're worth, because no matter how it looks right now, your life is a masterpiece waiting to be discovered. Kirstin is somebody that I met a few months ago through another networking opportunity. And I listened to her talk, and you'll hear and see it today about what she does, how she does it, and who she is. And if you don't start smiling within 30 seconds after she starts talking, you've evidently got the sound off. So turn it up. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Kirstin Leigh.
Well, thank you, Scott. I mean, I love the introduction but you pretty much stole everything I was going to talk about today. So I don't know what to do now.
Well, I have a couple things if you get stuck.
Okay.
Don't worry about it. So tell us a little bit about yourself and what you think we want to know and what we should know and what we need to hear, because we need to know and we want to know.
Okay, well, that is a lot. Thank you. Well, I am an author, motivational speaker, the founder of the Change Your Story workshop and Acting for Breakthrough. So I'll tell you a little bit about the workshop and how it came about. The Change Your Story workshop is an 8-week workshop that offers a faith-based, scientific approach to breaking free from life-controlling issues, faulty mindsets, bad habits that keep us from living at our highest potential. You know, we dig deep and get to the root of the problems, but that's never our focus. The Change Your Story workshop is about discovering or rediscovering that dreamer, the fighter, the hero that lives in all of us. And basically, it's pretty much what I needed, well, exactly what I needed when my life needed a major rewrite. I'm originally from this tiny town in Kentucky, never fit in, constantly bullied, had a very turbulent relationship with my dad, and an eating disorder that somehow I managed to keep a secret. I became very good at that. But despite all that, I had huge dreams. I was going to be a singer and an actress. I got a job when I was 12, saved all my money, and moved to New York City when I was 17. I was ready to conquer the world. And I did some really cool and courageous things. But I had this backstory that was following me. You know, if you would have told me that right when my career was getting ready to take off, that I would take off, that I would leave everything that I had worked for or believed in, silently struggling with alcohol, almost dying 3 times of alcohol poisoning, yet still drinking 20 beers a day, I would have told you that, you know, you're crazy, you know, and I would have been wrong. Purpose was the key to my breakthrough. God gave me a dream in the midst of my mess that set me on a journey to freedom. And that journey involved a lot. I went to about 30 AA meetings. I never spoke. I just listened. Very good for me. I studied the work of world-renowned psychologists, neuroscientists, pastors, thought leaders. One of them was actually Tim Storey, who's one of the top life coaches in the country, who is now endorsed Change Your Story. So to come full circle like that is kind of like, it's wild. Let's see, I went to church twice a week. I listened to 5 sermons a week. I wrote like crazy, asking myself question after question. If you ask why enough times, you get to the root of your problems. I would sleep with headphones on, blaring praise music in my ear. And this is all I did for like 2 years. And I didn't realize it at the time, but everything I was doing was rewiring my brain. Well, a couple weeks into my sobriety, I had another dream, and I was trying to write down the revelations and insights as fast as they were coming. And a couple hours later, I said, God, are you wanting me to create a new type of recovery program? And I felt this voice saying, not today. And that was great news. I could barely walk. Well, the Change Your Story workshop launched this year, but it's the program that God gave me 8 years ago.
That's it, right?
Well, that's a little about the workshop and about me. There's much more. I'd love to tell you let me know. Can I go on?
No, you can't go on. We're going to ask you specific questions. No, but because Being somebody with an 8-second attention span, I want to just stop you for a second and thank you for that pause. Tell us a little bit about, you mentioned a faith-based scientific approach, because that's an interesting set of words put together. Faith-based scientific approach. I even wrote it down, or you did for me. Tell us what that means, because I think that's fascinating. Because when you think about faith and you think about hope and you think about, God, God, or a higher power, science doesn't usually enter into that equation. So I'm real curious. Tell us about the faith-based scientific approach that you've developed with, your mission and your vision on how to help others.
Yes, thank you. It's an excellent question, and you're totally right. Well, thanks to neuroscientists such as Dr. Kirstin Leigh, we now know that once an addict, always an addict, isn't true. Science has now proven that we can literally rewire our brains, which goes right along with what God has said since the beginning of time. We are transformed by the renewing of our mind. One of the cool characteristics of the workshop is that while it is faith-based, it shares many characteristics of smart recovery, which is extremely secular. It's very self-empowering, promotes taking personal responsibility. We never use labels. We don't endorse the disease theory of alcoholism. Changing our story, it isn't about living life in a recovery mode. The workshop frees you to be you. Not the you life is molded, but the you God created. So God sets us free, but we have to do the work of renewing our mind. And that is where the science comes in. It takes a lot of work. We have a workbook. We dive into that cognitive dissonance, the role that our backstory plays in our current story until we deal with it. Understanding unwanted cravings, the psychology behind the desires. We cover the process of forgiveness. That is such a big thing. The power of speaking life into your life. And the role that spiritual warfare plays in change. That's something I've never heard of a recovery center doing. And it's big. I mean, you can call it faith and there's a being that, let me go back. Whether you call it faith or fear, good and evil, the positive and negative forces of the universe, God and the devil, you can call it whatever you want. But there is a being that I know as God that has the power to empower us to break free from every stronghold. On the flip side, there is one that works very hard at making us believe there is no way out. And I tell people this is nothing to be scared of, but it's something to be aware of. It gives you the vision to keep believing in yourself and your breakthrough when everything that you thought was going to get so much better and change when you got sober, well, it kind of feels like sometimes things are falling apart. So having this basic understanding of the role spiritual warfare plays in change is a game changer. Now, another unique aspect that we cover is that I used everything I learned in acting school to break free from a decade of addictions. So in week 7, I teach clients how applying basic acting techniques and elements of story structure to their life empowers them to let go of the role of villain and victim they've been playing and become the hero of their own story. And then we have how purpose is the key to breakthrough. Now, there are a million books, about finding your purpose, but the truth is, it's inside us. We all have a purpose. It's bigger than us. It is never just about us. It's the reason we were created. It's the reason why we've survived everything we have. And that's why it's the key to breakthrough. So that combination of faith with science, that truly changes your story.
I love that phrase, spiritual warfare. You know, I hear people, you know, a lot coming into the program or attempting to come into the program or being, you know, considering what program they need or want. And I use the word program because it tends to have more of a curriculum or structure to it in the traditional world. But, you know, look, it's a $40 billion industry, 40 billion. And we still continue to experience a 95% failure rate after 28 days in an inpatient program, which means the detox, the medical side of it, the clinical side of it, clearly is there's science behind it to deal with that part of the addiction, but the physical addiction or the allergy, if you will. But then the spiritual side, the recovery side is so interesting at that, you know, most people just don't get it initially, which is fascinating. And we continue after decades. And that's why, you know, at Confidential Recovery, we believe that one size does not fit all. And when people come in and go, well, you know, I don't want to go to those meetings because I don't believe in that God stuff, you know, because if I had a higher power or a God, I wouldn't be in the trouble I'm in. I said, well, you know, you really can't blame God for the DUIs and, you know, the issues and the fact that, you know, you're medically falling apart because you know, haven't slept in 3 weeks. You can if you want to, but I'm not sure that's where you want to go. So talk to us a little bit about that spiritual warfare, because maybe that's exactly what I'm talking about, but I'm not sure. But I like the phrase, and I think it's a common issue for most people, because there is a saying that if you can't find a power greater than yourself, it's going to be very difficult to find ways to transform. And I think that's true with anything in life, relationships, food, sleep deprivation. I don't think, you know, if you can find ways to work outside of, you know, my phrase is, my mind is like a bad neighborhood. I try not to go there. I try not to go there alone, you know, and Michael tried to go there with me once and security stopped him at the door. So talk to us about that spiritual warfare.
Yeah, well, first of all, you got to become a bouncer of your brain. That's what I say. You know, I had to become a major bouncer. You know, if it's not that God thought, you just don't let it in, because I get that. But spiritual warfare, it is something that no one wants to talk about. I grew up going to church, never heard about it once. And it wasn't until I experienced it, literally right after I had broken free from a decade of addictions. So we're talking, I literally drank 20 beers a day for years. And when I stopped, that's when 3 weeks later, all hell broke loose in my life. This time, none of my doing, because in the past, a lot of my hell was things that I had created. The spiritual warfare, you know, God is the God of everything good, of all things good. He created us with a clear mind to be free. But when sin came into the world, the enemy is alive and well. You know, the enemy is for destruction, disease. He works so hard in our minds to make us believe there is no way out. He will create circumstances that look so perfect that you're like, oh my gosh, this is so God. I don't even need to pray about it. That's one of the biggest mistakes I ever made. He creates these scenarios. He puts us in these situations. And so there's that battle. You know, we are in a battle with faith and fear. You know, God is so fighting for us and wants us just to reach out to him and mean it. But the enemy is right there, like begging us not to, tempting us not to. And there's generations, there's called generational strongholds. That's why it may be easy for one person to become addicted, that their family was addicted. You know, it's run in the family. So it's generational strongholds. And yes, God delivered me. And that means that it was just, I felt, even with the eating disorder, because that's the cool thing about the Change Your Story workshop, and it's probably with your program as well. The same tools that work for alcohol will work for eating, will work for, you know, your busyness is addiction all dressed up. The same tools, you have to understand that why, you have to give it to God. But now I forgot what I was talking about. But anyway, there is just that battle going on. Okay, so yeah, God delivered me, but I had to learn to walk in that freedom. You know, I had fought with that eating disorder all my teenage years secretly, and it was just literally killing me. But I had never thought of it as a sin. I just thought of this bad thing that wouldn't leave me alone, you know, making me do things I didn't want almost. And one day I just I just cried out to God like never before. And I felt this wind sweep in the room and then sweep out. And I was just like, I had no idea what deliverance meant. No, I had never heard of spiritual warfare, but I knew it was gone. Something had changed. But because I didn't understand the why of all my actions and why I was doing what I was doing, even though I never had that compulsion again, I still was up and down depending on my emotions or my feelings and everything. So I had to learn to walk in that freedom. And that's why you need faith and science. And with alcohol, I had begged God, I had pleaded, I had cried. And a lot of times I wanted things to change, but really what I wanted was me to be able to get away with what I wanted to do and not have results, you know, there's a big difference in that. But that last day, I did something I had never done before that the Bible actually tells us to do. I started telling the devil to go back to hell where he belonged. And I was literally, because God had showed me all of these things that he was going to do with me if I stopped doing what I was doing and trusted him. And what he had given me, my first book, I was just on, and then I went back. And I felt the enemy, and I was in there, my bed, lying, almost dying for the third time, thinking, why can't I do it? I don't deserve this. I don't deserve to live. And this little tiny voice inside me, I mean tiny, said, I deserve it. I feel like that's the purpose in us. That's the Holy Spirit. That's the purpose that God created us for, which is why it's the key to breakthrough, rising up above all of the junk, you know? So I got up, and then I felt the enemy laughing, going, look at her. She's never going to make it. Look what, you know, she's done, you know, look, she keeps falling. And I did what I've never done before. I started screaming, and I'm like, get out, leave me alone. You don't belong in my life. And I was just telling the devil where to go. And in the Bible, it tells us that we have that authority. And I had never used that authority. I had begged, cried, and pleaded. So that's that spiritual warfare. I saw that battle for my life. And I've never seen it so clearly since then. I've more seen it in circumstances, but it's there. And so when people grasp that, hey, some things are my fault. I created this problem. This is my thing. We can't blame the enemy for all our problems. You know, that's not what we're talking about here. But there is that battle, and we have to keep choosing God, keep choosing faith, keep choosing the right thing, and learning how to demand him to leave. So hopefully that gives you a dose of spiritual warfare.
A dose, more than a dose. You slapped me across the face and woke me up. I like that. You have to show a little passion in your presentation as we go forward here. So I'm teasing. So tell me, when you talk about the acting techniques in the recovery program, tell us how that works. How does that add value? What does that look like? Because when you hear terms like acting, that usually means projecting, in my opinion, projecting a rehearsed, performance of some sort. So it's not necessarily, it's genuine, but it's a performance, because acting usually is practicing. So how does that fit into your program, and what does that look like?
Yeah, that's great. Well, literally, I think my acting background saved my life, because that's the thing. Acting isn't about memorizing lines. It's about the motivation behind the lines. It's about understanding who you are, knowing who you are, deciding what you want, identifying what's in the way, and determining what needs to change in order for you to get it. And there's like you determine your overall objective. Like, what do I want more than anything in my life? Everything else that is not in line with that overall objective, it has to go. So I looked at my life like I did a scene. Okay, who am I? First of all, who do I want to be was more the question. And what am I going to do about it? And it's like, now, and this works no matter whether you're recovering from something, breaking free from something, or just staying on the purpose path. Every day I'm like, okay, this is what I need to do today. This is what I want to do. Does this go together? And if not, you start making decisions out of objectives versus feelings and emotions, which is huge. So in the Change Your Story workshop during week 7, I teach them a very simple formula that, when applied to your life, enables you to make changes that stick. Now, I also have an Acting for Breakthrough program, and here clients get scripts, they get assigned a character, and they learn what they would in an acting school, but the difference is they learn how to break down their own life like an actor breaks down a scene. So this puts you a little out of the situation, but you learn how to you learn how to break down characters, and therefore you start doing it for your own life as well. So that is really popular for creative types or people who are wanting to explore the creative side. That's acting for breakthrough. But in the Change Your Story workshop, we just touch on the basic acting techniques and elements of story structure that really allow them to see where they're playing the villain in their life. They're playing that the villain even, and how to become that hero of their own story.
So you're actually coaching them, facilitating and role playing with them. Is that correct? Am I understanding that correctly?
Yeah, and they learn how to, so they use their own life, like they're the main character. So almost like, okay, so you're the main character, Scott. What is your circumstance? Okay.
So you're not really a lifeguard. You're more of a coach, meaning it's not a one-off. It's not episodic. It's a process that you take people through over a period of time, and you're kind of like the reflective thinker. You're the mirror, if you will. So when you ask that question, I respond. You give me feedback, and then we work on a process that helps me get to achieving my goals, get to my plan, hitting my benchmarks, whatever it is I'm looking for. Or if I'm not sure what I'm looking for, maybe help me along the way to help find what it is I think I might want. Is that correct?
Absolutely. You got it. And so, yeah, you break down your own life like an actor breaks down a scene, and that's exactly what you do. And,
Right. Well,
and knowing the questions to ask yourself, deciding every day, what is my overall objective? What's my underlying objectives? Are they in line? Is my immediate objective going to go along with my bigger one? And so when you start making decisions, it gets you out. Like we have to understand our feelings, but we also have to learn to tell them to shut up sometimes.
Right.
They can't.
And if your mind's kind of scrambled from things that have been going on with your compulsive, obsessive, addictive behavior, sometimes, again, the old idea I said earlier, my mind's like a bad neighborhood. I try not to go there alone. My thinker isn't necessarily, when I first got sober, I had no idea where I was or what day of the week it was or how, and that was so long ago. But still, to seek new tools, which I really heard you talk about providing, is really powerful. Mm-hmm. So we just have a couple minutes left. I want to ask you this question because I don't want to forget this. Is there anything we haven't asked you that you'd like to tell us? What question would you like us to ask you that we haven't shared or you didn't tell me before?
Okay.
Our little journey here, you got, oh my goodness, I really need to, whatever that is. What is that? What would you like to share with us?
What people can expect when they, if they were interested in the Change Your Story workshop, okay. And that is positive energy. Of course, there are tears. It's hard. It's the hardest thing you'll ever do, changing your story. But it's the best job you'll ever have.
Will they become positive like you are?
That'll well up in them. Absolutely. Yeah. Yeah.
May take more than a week or two.
it takes a while. Believe me, it takes a while. But, an atmosphere of hope and expectation. The Change Your Story workshop has aspects of traditional therapy. You have to deal to heal. So we look at the feelings and emotions, how they're affecting the behavior. But they also gain what they would from having a recovery coach. We focus on their goals and their future because, changing your story, it isn't just about breaking free from what's breaking you. And this is the thing. I think that there's so many things are missing. It's about uncovering all of the potential and the promises that have been suffocating by that addiction or bad habit. Addictions aren't permanent, but they are a distraction to our destiny. So, the program is very attractive to high achievers, people who are in control of everything in their life, but those few things. People who have been through that cycle of, therapy and are looking for that missing piece. And people who are sober, but they're not free. That's where the joy is. They're sober, but they don't have that joy. And also people that are realizing those bad habits are becoming something more. And that was me, Scott. Alcohol did not start out as a problem, but it became a habit. And when life happened, all of my backstory just accumulated and accumulated. That habit became an addiction that stole years of my life. And right now, life is happening. I don't want that to be anyone else's story. So one of the things I'm really excited about is that we're now offering the Change Your Story workshop in private Zoom meetings, which means you can legitimately remain anonymous. You can keep your camera off, You can use a fake name. Now that would have been attractive to me. And I know, as much as I didn't want to ask for help because one, there wasn't a program that combined all of these things, and that's what I needed. So I had to search for 2 years, putting it all together, figuring it out. But I know now why is so I can help others do it so much quicker. But anyway,
what's interesting, what you're describing, we're getting ready to do at Confidential Recovery is to start, doing telehealth through Zoom or, a secure server, HIPAA compliant. But and the idea is to help introduce people to a platform where they can ask for help, and if they're generally, if they're there in the meeting room, they don't have to have their, they don't have to have their face there, and they can, like you said, they can put an actor's name or a fake name, whatever you want to call it, and at least get a chance to be exposed to a pivot opportunity or a paradigm shift or an opportunity to maybe be in a room with others who they may hear something that they wouldn't normally hear unless they go to a meeting, because that's the traditional way. And those things pretty much have been shut down around the community. So one last question, and then I want you to share with everybody your great quote, and then also let everyone know how they can reach you. But the last question I have for you is, if you had a magic wand, what would you do with it? If you had a magic wand, what would you do with it?
I would sap it so everyone could see themselves as God sees them, as the hero that he created them to be, as a fighter, as a person with so much substance, to see themselves well. That's what I would do. Not see maybe the person they've become or all the bad things they've done, but who they were created to be and who they still can be, because it is never too late to get your life on track. And that is a lie the enemy will tell you, that it's too late, you're too far gone. I listened to those lies for so long that now I recognize the voice. So I would let people see them the way they truly are. Great.
I'm going to turn it back to Michael, because he usually has the most exciting question that we ever have for a half hour. So Michael, what's on your mind?
Thank you, Scott.
Thank you. You're not going anywhere yet.
Okay.
Kirstin, you did a fantastic job. What I want to ask you, number one, is your workshops, are they available online, or is that something that's only in person?
Absolutely, online as well.
Okay, and where can people find that?
KirstinLeigh.com. So KirstinLeigh.com. Or I'm sorry, they can find that there. The ChangeYourStoryWorkshop.com as well. The ChangeYourStoryWorkshop.com.
Okay, now how about your books? I don't think you mentioned the titles and all that. So let's talk about.
Oh, thank you for asking. Well, opposite of the Change Your Story type things, I have a book called Believe. It is middle grade fiction. And hopefully they can, kids can read this book, young girls can, and they'll never have to read the other ones. But I also have the Change Your Story. And then I have the Change Your Story workbook. And the workbook is geared to go with the workshop. So, and they're all on sale on Amazon and on my sites and everywhere books are sold, actually.
Cool. Okay. So why don't you go ahead and give us our quote and we'll say goodnight.
Okay. Whoever's listening out there, your life is a masterpiece just waiting to be discovered.